Welcome to week 10 of the college football season. My name's Chris K, and I'm here to tell you how I utilize the DFS Pick'em tool over at unabated.com to find edges throughout the week as well as throughout Saturday. So one big thing I'll start with is these sites like Prize Picks and Underdogs. They release different props, different lines throughout the week and day on Saturday. This is a really great tool to utilize for trying to find these different props that pop up throughout the day without having to sift through all the different lines that are available over on Underdog Fantasy, on Prize Picks, etc. So first things first, I'm over here on Underdog Fantasy Entry Builder of the tool. I have specifically picked college football. Obviously, I'm a college football guy, and I'm looking specifically here at two big SEC games, Missouri, Georgia, and LSU, Bama. Conceivably the two biggest games of the weekend, and I'm going to add a little juice to make them even more exciting. So this is kind of where my thoughts at. Looking at the tool, I'm going to scroll down and see all the different options that are out there. So not a ton of edges on these games. We've actually seen some things change throughout the week already. So first big call out here is Jace McClellan. So he's burned me a little bit in daily fantasy. And, ultimately, though, a Bama running back is a great guy to have, especially if you like overs, right? So his lines over at Underdog is 74.5. This is a huge edge for us because we have him in the hundreds. A lot of different things go into this, right? For one, his play has been a little bit inconsistent in terms of rush usage and that market share on the team. But more recently, he's kind of pulled away as the number one guy, and he's looked really good doing it. So we have him around 50% of carries, which means he's looking at 109 yards for his projection. It also helps that the game script is nice. They're favorites in this one, but not by a significant margin, obviously. And their team total is fairly, significantly high. It's nothing crazy. Let me take a quick look, actually, and give you the specific number. But see here, it's over around 31.5, 31.75, something like that. So anytime you get a game script of a field goal favorite in the 30s in terms of implied team total, super helpful, super beneficial to use that running back. So I'm going to come over here and click him and add him into the mix. But looking on the other side of the field, so we're looking at guys like Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors. These are two of the edges, one way better than the other, you could say. Neighbors 8.5 or 8.6% of an edge. Just generally speaking, anytime a guy is in the hundreds, it's pretty difficult to hit that number. Neighbors is incredible, one of the best producing receivers in the country. So this was a little bit of a scary one, but if you think about it, Bama's defense has been great this season, and they have slowed down other receivers in previous games. So he would be a potentially guy to use. And what you can see here is that Jaden Daniels' edge went from 4.1 to 9.6% based on adding this. So these edges change based on what you're putting into your little entry here on the right. So if I'm going to go Neighbors under, you have to think that a guy like Jaden Daniels is also going to go under. 281.5 is a pretty decent sized number. So I don't mind that one at all. Even if I didn't love the Neighbors under, I think that this one here has some legs regardless. So I'll add him into the mix. He's got the cool picture here, potential Heisman candidate. So giving him some love there. Now looking at the Georgia-Missouri game, I have a couple different edges that make sense to me. Let's start with the Missouri side of the ball. Brady Cook has been great this season. I think Missouri is kind of like a dark horse SEC champ candidate. Great odds there if you haven't seen them. This Georgia defense, though, is not as great as it has been in the past just because they've been so elite, but they're still good. So slowing down other teams' offenses. I think this 244 number is close to fair, but considering the matchup that I believe their team total is only 20, you have to think that this is a good number to bet the under on. And then, of course, if I'm going to go under on Cook, I think under on Luther Burden makes sense. Get some correlation just like with Neighbors and Daniels. One thing to note, I mentioned, right? Lines have been moving already. This Luther Burden number, I'm not kidding you, 3 hours ago was 102. So this has moved already. So maybe that plays into your mind in terms of, do I bet it or not? Because the market has already moved that much. So you could add him to the mix, of course. See the different edges and probabilities here. let's say we want to get rid of these LSU guys. We decided we get a little cold feet. We can take a look at some Georgia options. So looking at guys like Ra Thomas and Dominic Lovett. So these two are in a difficult spot because with Bowers out, we don't have we have maybe 6 quarters to know or see how Georgia's going to use their offense. So Lovett has hit this number actually in 2 straight games, but it's come on 14 receptions. I believe one game he had 4 for 80 something, and the other one was like 9 for 75. So 2 different ways to get there. I don't love this under here, but I do see where our projections are coming from. It is just difficult to give him a ton of targets without seeing more data behind it. For instance, I believe he had 5 of 28 targets last week in a game that had similar spread and similar Vegas total for Georgia. So conceivably 5 targets for 65 yards. It is a pretty strong number there. Maybe a little bit more difficult to get to. On the other side of things, Ra Thomas has not hit this number as much, but it's 27 and a half. I believe he's hit it only once out of the last 5 games, but he's also become more relevant as a transfer with Bowers becoming out for a few more games. So looking at him even around like the 16 to 18% of targets, it wouldn't take much to hit this number, this 27 and a half. We have it significantly over at 47.4. One other guy to keep in mind is Marcus Rosemy-Jack Saint. He actually had a number on the board that was taken off. I think everybody was hammering the under there, and an Underdog got a little scared and pulled it from being able to be bet. One other guy to look at here is Dawan Edwards. I don't love this play, but again, I can see where the under is coming from. Missouri, solid team. They've played well. I believe they're in contention. If they beat Georgia, they're certainly in contention for the SEC East Championship. So not a walkover. Edwards, I believe, has hit this number more recently. A guy that you could theoretically add to the mix as well if they do blow him out. They have multiple running backs that are healthy now. Kendall Milton, Roderick Robinson. They've used guys like Cash Jones, potentially even like Andrew Paul in the past. So a lot of guys in the backfield here, and that's where your head has to be at to go under with Edwards. You have to believe that that Georgia either is going to use many running backs or get ahead early, start to rotate in some other guys. They have some big games coming up, so if they can find some time to give these guys off a quarter or two, then I think they certainly would take it. So that's just a bunch of different ways here. I'm looking at this specific set of SEC games with Georgia, Missouri, and LSU, Bama. Of course, if we go over to here, we have the Prize Picks tab. We can look here. It doesn't look like there are any props up for it at the time. We can also see, obviously, what other games are in the mix that we could potentially add to it. So we have 5-day free trial. By listening to this, it's SMIZZ, SMIZZ. What are you waiting for? Check it out. Free 5-day trial. See how myself and other unabated subs are utilizing this to win money on underdogs, on Prize Picks. We have a prop screen, of course, as well, that gives you all the different sports books as well. I'm in a state that doesn't allow it, so I don't focus on that. But there's options that are endless when it comes to college football. Hope you guys enjoyed, and good luck in Week 10.